Hey, hello, how are you? Welcome to the video. This is Freelancer, your local fighting game appreciator, and you know what I want to talk about? I think I want to talk about the SNK fighting game timeline. For those who may be living under a rock, SNK is back. They ruled the 80s and the 90s, hit a bit of a bump in 2000, came back in 2001, spent the next 15 years working their way back to the #1 spot, albeit through patchy slot machines, and we don't talk about that. But their full-on Phoenix Rising through the Ashes return came in 2016. With the newest title coming soon, Fatal Fury: Seed of the Wolves. I'm excited for the return of Fatal Fury, and I know you are as well. But what about the people who are new to Fatal Fury or new to SNK in general? If those people are like me, they probably enjoy things like lore and history, and maybe there's a little bit of a connectivity between the titles. If you are familiar with other SNK fighters like Samurai Showdown, Art of Fighting, and even World Heroes, you might be surprised to know that they don't exist in a vacuum. Crazy. But what if I told you that some of these titles are connected? Well, today's your lucky day and you click on the right video. I'm going to explain how all these SNK fighting games are connected. So pull up a chair, take notes, and you might learn something that will in no way improve your life. Okay, so let's begin. Before getting into the nitty gritty, I do want to mention the titles that I know have no connection to the main SNK timeline. I did a lot of research into this, so this is to the best of my abilities and what I was able to find out. But the list I currently have is Aggressors of Dark Combat, 3 Bout Count, King of Monsters, Rage of the Dragons, Sengoku, Street Smart, Breakers, Kabuki Clash, Neo Geo Battle Coliseum, Ninja Masters. The last 2 games I want to mention are big franchises that have a lot of misconception and a lot of misinformation about it being connected to the overall SNK main timeline. And those 2 franchises are Samurai Showdown and the King of Fighters. And this also counts KOF Maximum Impact and all the other spin-offs, GPA games, handheld, what have you. Based on my research, there have been some clues and hints at one point that may have been a bridge to connect these 2 titles to the SNK main timeline, but these things turn out to be either unfounded, coincidence, or just a big old nothing. Now, in the case of KOF, these games can be explained right away as KOF and its spin-offs aren't connected to the SNK timeline because KOF in itself is a crossover game. Its claim to fame is the large cast of characters and the innovative team system, which feature both original characters and other characters from other SNK titles. The first game in the series, The King of Fighters 94, was released by SNK on August 25, 1994 for the arcades. The game was designed to be a dream match fighting game featuring characters from the company's various arcade titles. This includes arcade titles like Fatal Fury, Art of Fighting, Ikari Warriors, and Psycho Soldier. Now, you can probably imagine how in the long run this franchise wouldn't fit into any timeline because the roster would later add characters from the slot machines and other arcade titles like Last Blade and Samurai Showdown, which feature characters from the 18th and 19th century. Speaking of Samurai Showdown, this is the last title I want to bring up as having no connection to the timeline. During my research for this video, I found a handful of things that could be valid clues that could tie it to the timeline, but it will be shot down by the developers of the games. I'm talking about things like Genjiro Kibagami being an ancestor of Iori Yagami due to their red hair, similar sounding last name, and their penchant for violence. In spite of their glaring similarity, there is no relation between the 2. Another character is Ganon Shiranui. If you're not completely overwhelmed by the Green Goblin Freddy Krueger Monster Man, the last name should sound familiar to you. Why is that? He shares the same last name as Mai Shiranui. Now, would it be hilarious that someone like Mai could be a descendant of someone like Ganon? Well, SNK didn't because they also shut down all connection theories between the 2. The last possible connection I found was just confusing to figure out, and I just chalked it up to being some sort of inside joke within the developers, or I just saw it as gag endings. Throughout the history of the games, there will be characters from other titles that would appear in the character endings, notably 2. I'm referring to Ryu Hakuto from Art of Fighting and Sho Hayate from Savage Reign. Hayate has appeared in the endings of Kyoshiro from Samurai Shodown 5 and Samurai Shodown 6, whereas Ryu Hakutoto appeared in the endings of Genon in Samurai Shodown 2, Kyoshiro's ending in Samurai Shodown 5, Nicotine's ending in Samurai Shodown 6. The purpose of these characters appearing in the endings just seemed to be for a laugh, as nothing has really developed from these characters appearing in these endings. Another thing I want to highlight regarding Samurai Shodown, just like KOF, Samurai Shodown is in a universe of its own. This is the reason why previous theories of its connection to the other games have been debunked by the developers, and a notable character, Nakaruru, has the power to jump between dimensions in space-time, which is how she's able to participate in the King of Fighters, which also implies the world of Samurai Shodown is separate from the world of KOF, and also implies to be separate from the main timeline as well. The last thing I want to highlight is the connection between Samurai Shodown and Last Blade. The events of Samurai Shodown take place in the Edo era Japan in 1786 through 1811, beginning with Samurai Shodown 5 and ending with Samurai Shodown Warrior's Rage. The events of Last Blade takes place in the Edo era Japan in 1863 and ends in 1864 with Last Blade 2. Now, if SNK wanted these two games to connect, they could easily do so. Just add in some characters that could be descendants from Samurai Shodown, or add in characters in Samurai Shodown that are ancestors to one of the characters in Last Blade, but there is no such thing. We did have the inclusion of Hibiki in Samurai Shodown 2019, but she is just a DLC crossover character. Also, timeline-wise, it wouldn't make sense since Samurai Shodown 2019 takes place in 1787, and Last Blade 2, the game that Hibiki appears in, takes place in 1864, making her appearance 77 years too early. Oh, that was a lot. But now, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video. The games that make up the SNK timeline. And the first game in this timeline is The Last Blade, starting in 1863 to 1864. The first game in the timeline, but also the least number of connections in the overall timeline. The only connection that Last Blade has to the timeline is that of the character Zantetsu and him being a possible ancestor of Eiji Kisaragi from Art of Fighting. One aspect that makes this connection really strong is the fighting style that both of these characters practice, which is the Kisaragi Ryu style of ninjutsu, which is a martial art focused on unarmed combat and armed combat with twin blades. Descendants of this clan who have proved themselves to be masters of the style are bestowed with the Mantis blades, Kage and Nagare, which are the blades that Zantetsu uses in Last Blade. When he eventually passes, the blades are passed down to his grandson, Sanji, who continues his legacy. The blades will eventually be passed down to Eiji Kisaragi in Art of Fighting, who is the latest master of the Kisaragi Ryu style but chooses to use the blades sparingly. The next game in the timeline is Art of Fighting, starting in 1978 through 1980. What connects this game in the timeline is its connection to the first game, Last Blade. As mentioned before, and to avoid repeating myself, Eiji Kisaragi is a possible descendant of Zantetsu from Last Blade. The biggest connection that Art of Fighting has to the overall timeline, and if you have any kind of knowledge of SNK games, then you may already know what I'm about to say. And that is the final boss of Art of Fighting 2 is a young Geese Howard. Born and raised in the mean streets of Southtown to a poor American woman and an Austrian terrorist named Rudolf Krauser von Strauheim. After being abandoned by his father and his mother passing away due to sickness, he learned that power and gaining power grants results to live a successful life. He trained in the school of Hakyo Kuseiken with Jeff Bogard, adoptive father of Terry and Andy Bogard, and Chang Zenzan, under the tutelage of Tung Fu Ru. At the same time, building up his network with the local mafia operating in Southtown. Sensing that Geese would use his teachings for malevolent purposes, decided to pass on his secret techniques to Jeff instead of him. Enraged, Geese leaves the school and cuts all ties along with it. No longer tied down, he is a lot more focused on his criminal pursuits and building up his own criminal empire, which included the overthrowing of reigning crime lord, pimp, previous winner of the Biggest Hater Award, and ex-love interest of Carrie Bradshaw portrayed by Sarah Jessica Parker, Mr. Big. As we approach the main story of Art of Fighting, it is revealed that Mr. Big, who is now under Geese's heel to kidnap Yuri Sakazaki to control Takuma Sakazaki, who is going under the alias Mr. Karate to work for Geese, as at this time, who's looking to build up a posse of powerful warriors to help his dream of conquering all of Southtown. Hoping to gain more men, he hosts the first King of Fighters tournament, where he is ultimately defeated by the hero of Art of Fighting, Ryu Sakazaki. Defeated and empty-handed, he was able to escape and disappear from the public eye until his eventual return. Although defeated, it seems that he's already setting his next plan into motion. The next game in the timeline is Fatal Fury, starting in 1991 through 1996. Now for this series, Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting are connected in so many ways it's kind of ridiculous. They're basically a sister series and it serves as a direct sequel to Art of Fighting, so much in fact that Geese Howard is a final boss of this game as well. So let me give you a quick rundown of the Fatal Fury series. It's 1981. Geese Howard returns to Southtown and his first action is assisting Jeff Bogart by separating his soul from his body in front of a young Terry and Andy Bogart. He sets up the next King of Fighters tournament and prop up newly hired top goon Billy Kahn as his champion of the tournament. He also meets Marie Heinlein, please forgive me, whom he will eventually marry and have a child with, who they named Rock Howard in 1989. 10 years after the death of Jeff Bogart, Terry, Andy, along with their friend Joe Higashi, enter Geese's King of Fighters tournament, which Terry wins by knocking him out of a window. Now one would presume that will be the end of him, but no, thanks to the power of an ancient scroll that he had in his possession called the Phoenix Scroll, he was able to survive his fall and recover in secret until his return in Fatal Fury 3. In 1995, the events of Fatal Fury 3 takes place. Word has gotten now about 3 ancient scrolls called the Gem Scrolls have been spotted in the wild and up for the taking by the strongest warriors. Even though the contents of the scroll are unknown, the thought of being labeled the mightiest warrior is enough to attract martial artists from all over the world to collect them. Many have fought for them, but they'll eventually fall into the hands of Geese Howard, who has then had them destroyed. Now, we eventually discovered the scrolls don't bestow the owner some immense power or anything like that, but to resurrect some ancient Chinese warlords into mortal bodies, but that's another video for another day. Geese probably knows that they won't do anything for him, but he is satisfied knowing that he is the first person in 2,000 years to collect them, thus he will never have a use for them. He also didn't want to run the risk of the scrolls being used against him in some way by other people. By re-establishing himself as the ruler of Southtown, he holds another King of Fighters tournament to settle things with his arch nemesis once and for all. In the tournament's climax, he faces Terry and is once again thrown from the tower. Although Terry catches him, Geese refuses his help and throws his arm away from Terry's grasp, laughing while falling to his own death. For good. No more secret scrolls, no Deus Ex Machinas, he's gone. The next game in this series is Boriki 1. It's spring 1999. Fighters from across the world gather at the Tokyo Dome to compete in the World Grapple Tournament. Fighters from all over the world with their unique fighting styles have the chance to prove which martial art conquers all. Boriki 1 is SNK's 4th 3D fighter and probably the most ambitious at the time. Instead of playing like your traditional fighter, you actually move with the 2 buttons and you attack using the joystick. Along with that, its roster, which I have to say is probably the most grounded looking roster I've ever seen for a fighting game. Like I mentioned before, this game has characters from different backgrounds with different fighting styles. Representing MMA, the protagonist of this game is Guy Tendo, which bears a strong resemblance to another well-known red-headed MMA character. Representing Taekwondo, Su Young Song. Representing boxing, Rob Python, and representing Kyokugen Ryu Karate is no other than Ryu Sakazaki, aka Mr. Karate 2. But wait, what is he even doing here? Well, sometime after the events of Art of Fighting, Takuma Sakazaki retires from fighting and Ryu takes up the mantle of Mr. Karate. As Mr. Karate 2, he travels the world spreading the good word of Kyokugen Ryu Karate. Him participating in the Berkey 1 tournament is just him testing his skills and hoping to meet some strong opponents and probably hoping to recruit some new students as well. If I may go off script a bit, but this is probably my favorite design of Ryo Sakazaki. The main theme of this video is timeline, progression, aging, etc. And Ryo's look perfectly encompasses that. The changes are not drastic but pretty minimal, and the design still stays true to the character. Now let's take a closer look. Ryo's famous orange gi is changed to a black one, and he has pretty prominent facial hair. Quoting the designer of Berkey 1 and the King of Fighters, "For Ryo Sakazaki's design, I really hated his orange dogi, so I took it upon myself to change it to a more chic color. Now this is cool," I thought to myself, and I took the liberty of giving him some stubble too. We sat directly across from and facing the 3D modelers and each other while we worked, so I showed them my changes immediately, and I had them sketch in the beard textures to see if it worked. Pretty interesting to see how small changes can greatly represent a character in a different stage of their lives. One last thing I want to highlight is his age. In the official Art of Fighting manual, Ryo's birthday is August 2nd, 1957, making him 21 at the start of Art of Fighting. However, in Berkey 1, his birthday is listed as August 2nd, 1967. I like to think this was probably an error by the developers. On his Berkey 1 profile, his age is listed as 32. If they went with the birth date of 1957, that would make him 42. If you ask me, looks-wise, he looks way more 42 than 32. The next game in this series is Fatal Fury, Mark of the Wolves, or Garo, Mark of the Wolves. Set 10 years after the death of Geese Howard, Southtown has finally reached the age of peace and prosperity. The sequel series to Fatal Fury, it follows an older Terry Bogard and the son of Geese Howard, who he has now taken under his wing. The story now takes place in the neighboring city of Southtown, the city of Second Southtown. SNK here, I really need to work on these names. A new fighting tournament called the King of Fighters, Maximum Mayhem, getting the attention of a new generation of fighters. Now, there's not a whole lot of clues, hints, Easter eggs to highlight why this game fits into the timeline since it's an outright direct sequel to Fatal Fury. I imagine this name change caused some confusion if you didn't know before that this was a Fatal Fury game. One of the biggest aspects of this game, narrative-wise, is that they were definitely going for a new generation of characters that were related to the previous generation of characters. We have our main protagonist, Rock Howard, who is the biological son of Geese Howard and the adoptive son of Terry Bogard. Kim Dong-hwan and Kim Jae-hoon, who are the twin sons of Fatal Fury's Kim Kap-hwan, Marco Rodriguez, Kyokugen Ryo karate practitioner and disciple of Ryo Sakazaki, Hokutomaru, who is a Shiranui Ryu ninjutsu practitioner and disciple of Andy Bogard and Mai Shiranui. With the announcement of Fatal Fury City of the Wolves, we get more of the Fatal Fury babies. We now have newcomer Preacher, who is a student of Joe Higashi, and newcomer Vox Reaper, who is the student of sub-boss from the Mark of the Wolves, Grant. With that said, we're now wrapping up the main SNK fighter timeline, but hold on a sec. What have I said? There's one more game to cover. One more game that not that many people are too familiar with. This next title may surprise you. The last game in the SNK fighter timeline is Savage Reign, or Kizuna Encounter. According to the original arcade game's manual, the study proclaims that the game takes place in the first half 21st century in Southtown that's been upgraded and renamed as Jipong City. A mysterious legendary fighter known only as King Lion has risen up from the shadows of secrecy and issued a challenge on television for the strongest of fighters to battle against him in a fighting tournament known as the Battle of the Beast God. Like a typical evil fighting TO, he promises fame and fortune to whoever comes out on top. Now let's take a closer look at the game here. There isn't a whole lot of points for me to highlight that tie this game to the timeline. Besides the story prologue that is in the arcade manual, the other two things that I found are within the two characters in the game, Kim Soo-il and Chung Pai-fu. Taking a look at Kim Sung-il first, it is heavily implied that he is a descendant of Kim Kap-hwan. He shares similar moves with Kim like his Hisan-zan, which is analogous to Kim's Hien-zen, Hishukyaku, and Dongetsu-zan, which is similar to Kim's Hishokyaku and Hongetsu-zan. Also, they both have the power of Phoenix, Ho-okyaku. The other character is Chung Pai-fu, who has a hat which he claims he received from the legendary Hungry Wolf when he was young. Even in his profile, He has his hat listed as one of his likes. If you received a hat from the legendary Terry Bogard, you will probably treasure that hat too. Well, there you have it. The complete main SNK fighting game timeline. This is the timeline I was able to construct with my research into the best of my abilities, and I have to say, it's pretty solid. I hope you all enjoyed this video as much as I enjoy making it. If you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, please let me know. I am also open to any constructive feedback regarding my videos. With that, thank you again, and I will see you in the next video.